Hello, welcome to this episode of How to Color Shiny Things. Hi. Sorry, we tried to have a little bit of fun. Yeah, that was a unique intro for us. Welcome to today's colouring tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about colouring shiny things. This is not the first time I have dabbled in colouring shiny things, but today I have come up with a different approach that I think for me takes off a lot of pressure, and so I wanted to show you and also kind of take you through my journey of what my brain has done in trying to learn colouring gold and colouring metal and other shiny things over the years, because this has been a topic that has fascinated me for a very long time, because there are a lot of weird things that happen with lighting when we talk shiny things. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and hello, quick shout out to our members who have jumped in. Shane's also here, and
Hi.
he's going to be keeping up with your comments, because you know that if I'm keeping up with the comments, there's going to be some distractions that we're never going to get the page finished.
You know there's going to be distractions either way, though.
Yes, but at least this way Shane is in control of the distractions to a point.
You've got a scapegoat.
I've got a scapegoat. So I also have my emotional support pickles that sit here and watch me, because, you know, I'm the one who needs, they're like my little audience that just sit here off camera. So, you know, bit of fun. But who have we got, Shane? Who's joining us today?
We've got Terry, we've got Meredith Cricket, we've got Gender, and that's our members so far who have let us know that they're here.
Yes, I'm sure there's more lurking. There's always more
Someone else
lurking.
needs to let us know.
Well, welcome. And for anyone watching this on replay, welcome as well. I want to try and make sure that our videos are useful long term. So, yeah, however you found us, whether it's here with us live or after, welcome. And we might jump straight in, because we do like to keep these a bit short, partly for my own energy and partly for your sanity as well. So I have in front of me a whole bunch of different things that I have coloured over time, and I thought I'd take you on a little journey. These are some of my pencil drawings that I did in the past when I first, like, we're talking, oh, here we go, 2021, when I first wanted to explore how to colour shiny things. Now, these two were my first attempt at gold, and actually these are when I published my first video on how to draw gold on this channel that you can go back and watch, because in that video I talked a lot, in a lot of detail, about how to use the different colours in something like this. And we talked a lot about why the lighting's a bit different, but then also how to use a reference photo. So these both I have drawn from reference photos, and reference photos are wonderful, and whenever you have the opportunity to use them, it is the way to get those really like realistic qualities. But I guess out of the gate, let's start by saying that to draw metallic, you do not need metallic supplies. I think that's the big thing to start with, is you don't need shiny art supplies to draw shiny things. And shiny or metallic, gold, silver, chrome, even just like wonderful colors, shiny, even just slight shine, like you see on my mug here, you know, all of that, it all follows the same principles. And yeah, we're going to try and learn basics of that today.
I remember when you first started getting into coloured pencils, you like hated the metallic pencils.
I still don't use them.
I don't need them in order
Yeah,
to make...
I have come a long way in, I now like neon. Initially, my neon pencils also went unused, but metallic I still don't use. I don't really have a reason that I would use metallic, because I would rather it look metal than just be like a, I don't know, there's a purpose for it. I definitely like a gold pen for highlights, but that's sort of a different goal. I probably wouldn't colour in a section with that. Maybe gold foil though. I think like foiling's like next level, but it's hard to get like pencils that, anyway. Shane has already sent us on our first distraction, so let's jump back in. So this one, I probably need to watch these pages more. They've got like mess all over them. This was one that I was very proud of in my early days when I first bought my luminance pencils. So this was a bit later in 2021, and it was my first attempt at trying to draw like a holographic material. This absolutely used a reference photo, and at the time this was long before like AI and everything, so it was actually really hard to find metallic reference photos, and unfortunately now I don't want to use AI, so it's still hard to find photos. The problem is now that there are a lot, and so you'd think it'd be easy, but there are surprisingly few photos on the internet. I think this is a 3D render that someone made of metallic things. I actually was planning, once I learned Blender last year, one of the things I was most excited about was that I could create 3D objects and apply this kind of metallic look and then use that as a reference photo. So that's something I probably will at some point do. But this took hours. This was a very, very long, and that's because I wasn't drawing it intuitively of like, okay, here's where the light goes, here's where the dark goes. I was copying a photo. I was using a reference image and just very, very slowly making sure that my colors were in the same places as their colors. But I do really love how it turned out. And this color combination of like the blues and the purples is still one of my favorite combinations. So that's one that I definitely love. This is like almost like a history of the channel in a little way, because then, and I don't have a date on this one, I did a video of the first time that I did a whole page with alcohol markers and didn't use any pencils, and that was this one, which again I really like. In this is a very simple book that doesn't have background, so I actually drew this whole background. This video is also on my channel if you want to have a look. I did use reference photos for these as well. So the reference photos I had weren't exactly these poses, so it's not like a copy, but I found a picture of Darth Vader and I found a picture of C-3PO, and these are obviously Lego versions, they're a bit different, but I used each of those photos to sort of work out where the light would bounce so that you can get the shiny things. Because the most difficult thing about lighting, and especially for someone like me that always really wants it to feel as realistic as possible, is that when light interacts with objects, how shiny the object is changes how much the light bounces, and then you've got reflections from other things. And where's that circle that we had? With a ball like this as an example, this is not like, you wouldn't color every single ball like this with these exact lighting in this exact spot, because this is actually a reflection of something that has shown up in the surface, and it might be trees or it might be something else, but it actually means that when something's shiny, you're kind of coloring the environment onto it in a way as well. And that's where it gets insanely complicated. And that's usually where my brain just hits overload, right? So in that video that I did of how to color things gold, I simplified this into a version that most people can kind of copy. And I don't have the original art here, but I do have some other examples where I've kind of replicated this. I think this is really the only one, where instead of trying to fit around all the perfect lighting, you can actually follow a very simple gradient and a color sequence that will allow you to make things look shiny. Now, the catch with this is we're just talking flat objects, and there's a different process for rounded objects, but it's a really good starting point. So here's an example where I've used that, where this object around here, I've literally just gone dark to light to dark again, and then the same, and then done the same around here. And as a result, it's a very simple process, but it ends up looking like gold. So, and that is actually the process that I mostly followed in our latest video with this one. And this one I actually got myself really confused because I tried applying this and then I tried changing the rules and I ended up being really frustrated in the process. But if you look at these, it is kind of straight lines as well. And it is kind of like this gradient that I followed going on each of the objects. And that, for the most part, ends up looking gold. When it came to the apple, I tried using a reference photo and I ended up really frustrated. And then with the petals, I kind of just like stopped following the rules and did what I wanted. And I felt frustrated because this is something that I feel like I know how to do. I've colored enough stuff, and yet when it came to trying to apply it to a new object without a clear reference photo to copy, all of a sudden I felt out of my depth, and that wasn't fun. So, just to continue my journey on this, then with the coloring trends video that's on my YouTube channel at the moment, I explored a bunch of other trends. And one of the things that I ended up coloring in that was jelly, right? This jelly picture actually really changed the way that I thought about coloring. So the reason I say that is because when you glance at this, you see jelly. You see that it's jelly, it looks like jelly, and it works. This was really easy to do. But if you actually think about it realistically, it's not correct. Like there's not reflections coming from anywhere. It's not actually see-through, and it's all this. But that doesn't matter because when you see it, you see jelly. And a lot of that comes down to, I guess, an artistic interpretation of it rather than trying to strictly be realistic. And maybe that sounds obvious to everyone, but for me, that the process of actually doing that unlocked something for me where this was a lot of fun and it was easy and the end result looked really good. And I did the same for then my holographic page, which is this one. It's not really holographic, it's iridescent more so, which actually is a very similar intended effect to that first one that I showed you with that blue bit of fabric, except that this, I just took that simple approach again, the same that I did for the jelly, and I changed the way I focused on the shapes, and actually by the end, I think it looks really effective. It's obviously not realism, but I think for me, sometimes my realism gets in the way and it stops me because, I mean, this picture was never going to be realistic, right? Well, I mean, maybe you could, right? But I think in terms of just coloring for fun, I put way too much pressure on myself when it comes to realism. And if you did watch my last video, you'll see that with the foil balloons that I tried to make, they turned out really well, but I was so stressed. So I wanted to find a better way. These have inspired me to find a better way, and I wanted to apply the methodology that I used here into coloring shiny objects as well. And that is my goal today. So, Shane, any comments before I move on?
So first thing is, it's raining really heavily here.
Yeah.
So if you hear a lot of noise in the background, that's the heavy rain. And if we suddenly go offline, it also means that we lost power. But not dangerous, all good.
Not doing that.
Everyone's happy.
I hope it's not that bad, right? I'm not going to lose her.
Caitlin's also here.
Hi, Caitlin.
Who's joining the chat. I'm just seeing if there's anyone that I've missed. Terry.
We said Terry earlier.
Yeah, we said Terry.
Always good.
And there's lots of other people in the chat as well.
Awesome.
So I think everyone's excited to see
Cool.
your process.
Awesome. So I want to start quickly and talk about colors because I feel like this part's actually really simple, but I just want to show you why it's simple because then we can just kind of get it out of the way. And I did talk about this more in that first video on how to color gold as well. So this is kind of just a quick reprise of that. So I've got here an example of where I've done two shiny coloring things here, and it is kind of hard to see when you only have the context of this one little spot. But basically this is the simple method to coloring a shiny gray, and you can actually just change that method to almost any color by just changing the colors. And I've got here on my iPad an example of some colors that, believe it or not, is all you need for shiny colors. So here we have a range. I usually like to have a white and then going to a dark blue. And so I've labeled these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to show you. These are my 5 colors. And then if, whoop, nope, don't want to do that. If we move up, you can see by reordering those same 5 colors into a different sequence, this now looks shiny. And I've actually done a third one so that you can see it a little bit better there as well, of the difference again. So most shiny things are going to have some highlight point, and then they're going to have dark areas, and then everything between is kind of just the gradient. And so by adjusting these, we've added a highlight, and often they will have multiple highlights. So I usually like to add a second one somewhere else, or like here, this is the highlight, but then you can see I've put a highlight on the edge as well. And then from here, the light to dark is quite small, but from here, the light to dark is quite big. And we're just using the colors in between to sort of fill the gaps. For smaller objects, you might only need one color in between, whereas for bigger objects, you kind of want to have those gradients. And that's not that different to every other coloring thing that I've done so far. But just to show you, this is actually, and it probably looks overwhelming because of all the numbers, but if you want to just start practicing some different color combinations, find just like a one color with the different light to dark, and then try changing the order and see what you get just by doing a strip like that. If you want to copy this exact sequence, feel free to take a screenshot and try to copy this. It doesn't have to be this exact sequence. You can actually kind of move the highlight wherever. Basically, I would say move the highlight, add a highlight, and then just kind of adjust in or out how close they are, and just see what you get going light to dark, because there is a lot of variety. But you can, this doesn't have any other effects applied or anything like that. It's literally just this color to this color. And I've done it here with markers, basically the same thing, although a slightly different sequence. This one I've got the lightest is here, and then it goes darker, and then I tried to add a highlight on the end, not very well. This one I was playing around a bit, but I wouldn't do that. And it's just light. This one's just gone light to dark on either side. It didn't even go back to a highlight. So that's a simple method. I've also got here, so once you've got one color figured out, you can just change the color. This is the exact same sequence, but once you use yellow ranges, you start getting gold. And so I've done a few different colors here. This is is that two different golds? Yes. These are two very slightly different golds. The only actual color that's different here is the 2, but it makes this one look more muted. It's a bit less obvious, I think, on the screen at the moment. And this one's brighter just by changing that sort of, so the middle tone of whatever your color is going to be this middle range, and that's going to change the rest of the color. I have a similar little chart that I have here from, I don't even know. Oh, this was actually from the trends video where I was looking at the different colors. And again, you can see like you've got this brown one, which is almost more bronze, or you've got this yellow, which is not too different to these. And if you switched out that bright yellow here for just something a little bit more gray, a little bit more toned down, you get a completely different gold. I have another example here. So this one's just, again, basically the same process with a different color completely changes the look. And so these all look metallic, but in whatever color you want. And so black and white, or your grays, will give you most variations of metal or chrome. The example that you saw in the thumbnail of this video is actually this exact color palette and this, but this is using the new method I want to teach you. And it looks more complicated than it is. So we'll come back to this, but you can see that chrome effect, it's using more of this method of a bit more just fun and follow it, but it is the same colors again. And so the colors is actually really easy, but just to sort of back this up a little bit further, I do have a few examples here to show you that, hang on, let's turn, here we go. I just wanted to show you, these were from my last video, and sorry about the many other layers underneath, let's just hide all that. This is just to show you that actually these colors, where's my pen? There we go. These colors in the gold are just a black, right? And then we've got here like a brown, that's kind of a lighter brown. If we go somewhere in between, we get the darker brown, and then you've got lighter yellow, and then we get to the white. So I have on this one put the colors here. There's actually a lot of colors in this one because I pulled many different samples, but showing it's essentially browns and yellows creates this kind of gold. I do have another example here. These both, again, show, and I have, like, you don't need to pull 20 colors out of them. This is just to try and show you that even the most crazy looking gold images essentially come from the same range of a white or a highlight color, different yellows, and then going into the browns. And then you get your gold. And sometimes it gets really dark and has a darker color. This exact picture, this is just a brighter version and a muted version, and you can see the difference it makes to the gold. So if you want more of a muted gold, you just pick colors with a bit less chroma to them, a bit less like saturation. And then if you want it brighter, you just pick brighter colors. So hopefully that gives you a good starting point. And I just wanted to show then some thoughts about how gold actually works, where this is an example where there's not really a strong gradient, but yet we still see this as shiny because ultimately it's still the combination of those same colors. Now something like this is a bit more, actually it's not more complicated, it's just you have to think about other things, because in this case you're kind of looking at a globe, and so the highlights kind of carry across the colors and there's some kind of reflection of something dark in here. But ultimately if you took a ball like this and instead, this is kind of just like a pixelated version of a gold sphere. And so mixing it up, but in some of the dark areas having a splash of the lighter color, and some of these have gradients on them, but it's still those same colors. Why can't I? No, I want the eyedropper. I need to use Procreate more. So still you have that dark blue. Can I draw on this? No, let's add a layer so we can actually, here we go. I cannot use without an active brush. Wow, apparently all my brushes are gone. Well, that's fun. I used this only like a week ago, but I updated it, so we're not going to worry about that. Okay. And then here, one more example I want to show you actually just shows in a photo, shows the gradient in action. Here we go. So I just wanted to show you this because if you actually look at this object and put it on its side, you can see a bit of what we're seeing, where you've got the light, you've got the dark, you've got the really dark here. These gradients aren't really gradients because there's obviously a dint here, and so it makes it a sharper corner, a sharper transition. But then over here, you've got the light goes into the dark, and actually they're just colors. Like there's not some, you know, photos can't be shiny, but by going light to dark, we get this shiny look. And here again, you've just got light going across to dark, and then along the edge, that's where there's a little bit of a special shine as well, because that's just light bouncing off in a different way. So it's all essentially light bouncing in different ways. And I want to show you a simple way to do that without needing all of the reference photos and everything else. And so let's jump into that. So because I thought it'd be fun to color a little C3PO here. And the reason I've chosen this picture is because it has some areas that we can apply this new method to that's a bit more of, especially if you've got a lot of bold and easy, cute, cozy coloring books, this style's going to be more of a fit than what I showed previously, being more flat lines and stuff like that. So this one I used a reference photo, but you don't have to, because we're gonna do a simpler version. But along here on the roof, I've used that straight line version, again, just the gradient going from one color to another. And when you then look at it in context, it looks like it's shiny. So for this version, we're doing things a little bit differently. So I actually took the method of the gummies and have essentially reversed it. In fact, I kind of want to show you on something. Where was that other picture I had? Something that's a bit more rounded. Oh, here we go, balloon animal, that'll work. Just to show you what I mean. And then we'll get into trying to do it on our final thing. So when you do the gummy page, you actually start by putting darker areas in these different spots and just doing circles. And then you slowly build up around it with the other color, and the highlights on top are at the end. We're actually doing the same process, but we're kind of reversing the colors. So I am going to use the colors here that I have, because I believe that's what I have right here. So I've got the CG1, which is this lightest one. CG is Cool Grey. So if you're using a different brand, just find the Cool Greys and you'll get the same effect. I've got the 3 and the 5 and the 7, and there's actually a 9 on the end there. We probably won't use that, but we'll see what happens. So what I want you to do with whatever object you have, if it's an object that has curves, we're going to start with that. And then if it's an object with straight lines, you basically just apply the gradient we already did. So we're going to start with our lightest color, and basically kind of like the jelly of creating circles, we're going to do that, but with the lighter color first. And so we're actually going to just think about, if you are someone who knows a little bit about lighting, you can use that skill here to kind of make it a bit more realistic. But otherwise, we can just have some circles on different areas. And what we're going to do is we're kind of going to use the same method, but we're going to build these circles out, blending into the darker colors as it goes around the edge. Now you can also here sometimes pull in like a second, it doesn't all have to be in one bit. We can add a second dot sometimes. The point with this is that I want it to be like just easy, and there's no sort of like pressure. So these are not all in the middle, notice. I probably should put a page behind this though. Piece of paper. They're not necessarily in the middle, they're not necessarily even on everything. Sometimes you can even put them like hard against the edge. I would just say, like, if you're gonna put this one further right, maybe put them all further right. I say that, but then I put this one further left. So, I mean, look, breaking my own rules, so let's see how it turns out, I guess. So yeah, we've just got some round areas, round up here, and that's it. So that's a really easy, hopefully, place to start. And then from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our next color up, and we're basically gonna just draw around these. Now, I've picked the OLO markers because they do blend really well, but the good thing about like chrome type things or shiny things is that it's actually normal to have harsh outlines sometimes. So you can come back and try to blend these back into the main color, but it also doesn't matter that much if it doesn't blend all that well. You're also just gonna find that like cheap paper or these coloring book pages are not gonna blend as well as like something like a proper marker paper. So I think this is probably one of those things where it matters less. Oh, hang on, I've grabbed the darker end. Let's go to the lighter end. So I'm doing this quite quick as well, because if I rush this and it still looks good, then you know that if you take your time, you can do better. Okay, so I've done that color with each, and then I've just done a second layer of around the join in the lighter color, just to help it kind of blend together. They will sort of settle and blend a bit better as they go. Cool, so that is the basis, and then we're actually just gonna go a darker color again and do the same thing. This time I have it on the other end, so that makes that easier. So I'm just now going back, for each one, just going back over the join with the 3. So I'm up to the 5, and then I'm going back on the join with the 3 just to help the 5 and the 3 blend together a bit more. I don't know if already you can start to see the sort of metallic look showing up a bit here. My challenge with things like this has always been that as soon as I start, I want it to be completely photo accurate. So this for me really is my goal of trying to break that a bit and just actually enjoy the coloring a bit more. And like here, look, I've accidentally, I don't know how I did that, but it doesn't really matter because we can just turn that into a shadow, because shiny things have shadows as well. Shadows in the light areas and lights in the shadow areas, everything reacts a little bit differently once you've got reflection involved. All right, and then I think we got, oh, did I put that in the right one? Yes. We're going to go down up to the 7. And this is probably where I'll stop, but you can go darker again. So if you want the metal to look brighter, you might make your middle colors a bit thicker compared to the outer colors, because if you run out and just go like get to the outer color and it fills the area, then the whole thing might end up looking a bit darker. But you can always also come back and just use the other colors more to make the highlights smaller. So just experiment, I think. So again, so I've gone with the 7 and then I'll go back with the 5. The 7 has come out quite dark. I'm actually going to go back then with the 3 as well. We might just make this one a bit of a darker grey overall, because I feel like I've lost a bit more area than I wanted. And then, so you can kind of just rotate through the colors. So now, because I've gone 5 and then that's bled into the 3 and then the 3's bled into, so then I just, basically you're just re-wetting each layer to say, please blend. They just need to be a little bit wet and they'll blend back together. How are we following along so far? Is everyone keeping up?
I think so. I don't think there's been any questions yet.
In some cases, you might not even want to use the darker colors. So I think that's just something to kind of play around with and judge as you go.
Linda says the balloon dog reminds her of when you and Jazza and your friend built the dinosaur balloon.
Yeah. That was a fun day. All right, so so we're just finishing up with our 7 around some of these other areas. And then I'm coming back with the 5. Now, in a little area like this, I'll probably just do my gradient technique. So I've done dark on one side, and then I'll just kind of go lighter so that it has like a strip of the lighter color. Same with this one. We might just do darker on the sides and then lighter in the middle, and then it will just end up being a color. Now, the other thing you can kind of do at this point, because we've kind of followed that basic structure for all of it at this point. So you've got the same thing kind of happening everywhere. The thing is that unless everything is a perfect shape, you're going to have things reflecting a little bit differently. And actually, I think in some ways, the little bits that look a bit weird here kind of help with that. One thing I did here on this section is instead of it all being evenly spread, I started to sort of spread out and make my highlight only the top bit and spread the middle color. What I mean by that is I've got my 3 at the moment. So instead of leaving this whole thing evenly colored, just darkening up the lower bit. So it's almost like I've moved the highlight up a bit, but I've still kept the rest of that the same. Now that's just like an optional extra, or maybe you can split that light into 2. This kind of just ends up creating that illusion of things reflecting differently, because it's reflecting the surroundings. We don't know what the surroundings are, but they're never going to be perfect even lighting. They're gonna be weird lighting and weird shadows in different spots. So at this point, if you're feeling like experimenting, even just with your middle colors, just add some different unexpected shapes without going too much into the dark or light. Well, I mean, even then you probably can. Just add some little glitches and bits, and don't worry too much if your markers do anything or don't work in certain areas and stuff like that. You can even come back with a darker color and do the same. Just kind of do however much feels comfortable, because I actually think some of the little different areas, now that you've got the basic structure, can really help to make it look more like something's reflecting.
If you did feel like you went too dark, could you use like a white Prismacolor pencil or something else to sort of like bring it back a little bit, or not?
Yeah, so if you use your lighter colors on top, the thing about alcohol markers is sometimes you can lighten what you've just put down. So that would be the first thing I'd try. Just know that every time you create a new wet patch, you probably want to re-wet the area around it, or it's going to be like blotchy, like what I've just done there. But you can lighten areas up with your lighter color again, or with the colorless blender, or you can always come over something like this with pencils at the end and change the colors a bit. That's probably what I used to always do. Before I felt more comfortable with alcohol markers, I would do a lot of that kind of stuff with pencils on top at the end. So I'm pretty happy with this at the point. It's a bit blotchy. I kind of like that look, to be honest. But again, it's about what you feel comfortable with. If you don't want all the blotchiness, just don't add all that extra stuff that I just added. That's part of me also trying to get out of my perfectionism a bit. You can also, if you're feeling brave, come in with a darker color. So like we had this, 7's probably dark enough actually. I'm not going to go darker. But just adding again a few just little random bits where it's like, oh, I don't know what that was, but obviously something reflected, right? And even just some random, like, not something reflecting in the surface, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And they can even be in the lighter areas. So just a few. I wouldn't go too much with the dark because it gets dangerous. But you can see there I've added just a few. Because then what we're going to do, which is the fun part, is add some highlights with the white pen. So I've got here, I've got the, what is this? This was the new Ohuhu. No, the Kahuku. I've been liking the Kahuku. I haven't really played with them that much. I've actually got the range again because you might but I don't know. I feel like the safe option is just to go with the white. We're going to do that. You can come back with some middle colors as well. But again, I want to keep it simple like our jelly page. And so I think just the white is a good start. So for this, what I'm going to do, first of all, the easy part is just in those highlight areas, just come and add an extra highlight in the lightest areas. This is just going to really bring back, and you can do one highlight or two depending on the shape of the area you've kind of ended up with. You know, join them together however you want. Again, it's just about saying, okay, this is the lightest part. The light is bouncing off this part, right? So starting with a lot of those same areas. That now gives us some highlights. And you can stop there, or you can be like me and go overboard with paint markers and start adding some other just little flecks. I wouldn't go too crazy, but just some other ones around the different areas, even in like the dark areas or even along the edges, to just show that the light is actually bouncing in different ways, because light does that on things like this. Now, this page has a very thick outline, so I wasn't planning to cover this outline, but if you do want to cover this outline, I would just apply the same method, and well, it depends on the look, because it will completely change the look. But like here, I actually grabbed a medium paint pen and went around the edge and then the light on top. So that can create a completely different chrome look. I'm actually not going to do that on this one. I think I actually really like how this has come out. I'm a big fan of just dots as well. If you're like, oh, I don't want to put a whole line there because it'll be too big, do a line and like a few dots. It's like the line's broken a bit. And this, again, I'm not following any rules on where to put them. There is no lighting technique here. It's kind of just where it feels right, where it looks like it could do with. And if you're unsure, start small. Don't do a big giant one like what I did up here. Start small and then just add. It's easier to keep adding than it is to take away. These last little highlights for me is what really sells the final look, I think.
While you're finishing that off, we've got Molly from Adelaide is a 10-year-old fan who's homesick today.
Oh, Molly. Well, I'm sorry that you're homesick, but I'm happy that you're able to join us as a result. So, hello. Hopefully you get better soon. I'm sorry to hear that you're unwell. All right, so I think we're almost done here. You can kind of push the highlights as far as you want. I'm always the person who sits here and just adds a few more white highlights. If you've watched many of my videos, you will know that to be true. But I think overall, for what was a lot of just like, you know, for someone like me that really tries hard to use reference photos and follow things exactly, I think for just making it up as we go, I'm pretty happy with the end result. So, that is the method. That is like, this should be a really simple way to make something shiny. And if you want a different color shiny instead of the gray, in fact, a balloon animal, I probably could have gone for something a bit more exciting, but that's okay. You can just change the color range. Just make sure that it goes from light to dark. And this probably wasn't a great light color in this example because it's a bit different to the rest, but find something that is close to a white and use your white paint pen as the extra accent. So if you can see here as a final sort of comparison, the method is not that different. It's kind of just reversed. And here that was the same thing of like afterwards going back with a white paint pen and just like doing those little dots. Here I've also done the little tiny dots. You don't have to do that necessarily, but it is essentially that same concept of working with the areas. So that, with that out of the way, I would like to bring out, and I know we're going to be short on time, so I'll be doing as much of this as I can now, and we will come back and do the rest in the members live stream, which is like an extended live stream after this. We're going to have a go at colouring in C3PO. So for C3PO, I actually found, so this colour palette that I used for that OLO Gold page, I actually thought it's a pretty good palette for C3PO. And I'm going to do my best to just follow what I've just taught you and not use a reference photo and not overthink it. Just keep it simple and fun and see where it gets us. Because I do think I really like even the style of this, but it still for me has an element of challenging because I still overthink it even when I'm trying to not overthink it. So let's move this one out of the way and let's give C3PO the same treatment. Now, the difference with him, the background, I'm going to do more of that gradient effect. With him, we kind of have a choice because he does have a lot of like very straight panels that we could just do a gradient on. And if we do this kind of bubbly effect, he's going to look more bubbly. But I think I want to try it anyway because I think that kind of leans into that whole cozy coloring, which is what he is, even though he's got a lot of harsh lines. But we've got here, so what have we got? We've got the Y, where are we? 2.0, no, that's not the right one. 0.1, okay. We've got a 0.1 here, which is this one. And then we've got, I might just take off the ones, this is the thing about the OLO markers, you can pull them apart. Take off the colors that I'm not going to use so I don't accidentally bring in different color in. We've got the 1.2, these are all in the yellow range. I've also got the 1.1, but I feel like you can skip over some of the colors fairly easily. By the way, so recently, so the thing about the OLO markers, I'm a big fan. I recommend these and Ohuhu to everyone between the two. But recently I actually cut open an Ohuhu marker just out of curiosity. I was actually comparing it to another brand to see how much ink is inside. And hey, Holly, do we have that? I should show them the open marker. Because the thing about Ohuhu, and I've got these here, this is like a sample marker for Ohuhu because they come in the two parts. And so you can pick two different
sample
colors.
Marker for OLO?
Yes. Oh, I'm gonna get their names so mixed up. Whatever I'm holding is what I'm talking about. So the OLO, this is a sample marker that actually shows the inside of how much ink it can hold. Because the difference with this compared to other markers, and these are a lot more expensive to be fair, but these you can split, thank you, you can split in half and this is a color. And this feels like a much smaller marker when you compare it to an Ohuhu, which I have here, right? So this feels like a much smaller marker, and we also, just for proper comparison, you've got to account for that, right? So it's the barrel bit. So it looks a lot smaller, but OLO say that they fit as much in this as is in this, which in theory means that half an OLO marker is worth a whole Ohuhu marker. So this is what they've said, and I've got this which shows the inside, and it's loose ink, and if you shake an OLO, you can hear the ink, so that is what's inside. I wanted to know what was inside the Ohuhu marker, so close your eyes if you're offended by deceased markers. We got creative. We opened it up, and actually, so this is what most alcohol markers use. This does not have loose ink in it. It's a cotton core base. So the thing about a cotton core base is that this is what's holding the ink. And in most cases, you can't like shake this out unless they're like really overloaded, which is a lot of brands that like leak a lot, probably are just overloaded. But that is hollow, so you can see through it. So actually this is all the ink. It's not this giant big thing. It's actually a lot smaller. And so when you compare this to half of this, all of a sudden it's a lot more believable because this has the loose ink and there's no cotton, whereas this is all cotton just with the ink soaked in. So I would love to one day try and figure out exactly how much ink is in one of these and maybe even pull apart like the Copic markers to compare as well. But suddenly this claim for me was like, oh, okay, that's how, because these don't have as much in them as what they look like they have. And that's true for any alcohol markers. I'm not trying to bag Ohuhu, it is the norm.
That marker looks so sad with it, like on an angle like that.
Yeah. The thing you will know is that this will never go in the bin because it will forever be our sacrificial marker that helped us to discover the truth.
I also love that you're nicely putting the cap on it when it's
to
like,
help
clearly
it not
makes
dry out.
no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, so that one's a bit of fun. That's just a little fun side note. I got distracted, but just because I know sometimes the half markers look a bit like, what's with that? So worth the mention because these blend really beautifully. I think Ohuhu's probably better for a lot of like cozy coloring because they do kind of let out a lot more ink at once. But I mean, there's pros and cons. If you want to blend, then OLO's the way to go. So let's join. I'm going to join my smallest. So I like that you can just flip as you're going. That for me is good, as long as you don't then get them mixed up. And then we've got the 1.4. You can also just buy the chisel. I should ask them to send me the chisel tips, because then you could actually just have the one color with the brush and the chisel like the others. You just end up with, it'll last a lot longer. 1.4, that's the next one. And then I had 8.6 of like, I've gone into the browns. Oh, it's still the yellow actually.
While you're doing that,
so that's that. That's the color.
Rhonda has joined the chat, and there's also a question here. Do you still use Copic markers? Not
really. No, I actually recently packed them up. They used to be here because, for one, I never had the big set. So part of it was just availability, that if you only have like 5 markers, you're like, oh, I may as well, I had about 20. You may as well go the Ohuhu that I have all of them, because it's just easier with the color range. But actually, if you watch my video on comparing alcohol markers, I talked about it in that, where the biggest thing with the Copic is that I love the sketch markers and they work beautifully. Their tip is a bit drier and a bit more like the OLO tip. They're different to the Ohuhu, but they have this flaw in the design where the sketch marker, which is the one that everyone goes for and that I personally love, it has the potential of splitting in the cap and you don't see it, and it dries out your marker. So you think you've used up your marker, but actually the marker's just drying on its own because of the split in the cap. And I went through my set of, I said 20, but I think I actually have more like 40 to 50. I say it in the video, but it was like 15 of them had the split cap. Like the ratio was huge. And I looked online and just found it was this crazy, like, I'm bad with numbers, so please look it up in the video, but it was like a massive fail rate. I'm going to guess off the top of my head, it was like 17% or something of like people had counted their 100 markers and this is how many failed. It was an embarrassing number of markers that split over time. And so for me, that kind of just become, you know what, I'm not going to keep investing in these. They're also so expensive, and both OLO and Ohuhu, which I love, and there's a lot of other good options as well. These are my 2 favorites. These are just as good. So I don't see the point in spending the extra marker for spending the extra money for a marker that has that cap flaw. So that's my rant on Copic. I'm done with Copic. I'm out. Do not recommend any further. Okay, let's get in because I do want to make some progress here. So let's think. We're gonna go shiny up on his head. We're going to go shiny on his hand. We're going to do a little bit on each of the fingers. Around here, it's probably easier to do my gradient method. So we're just going to color a section shiny rather than like a little blob of it, and then a section shiny on this side as well. And then we'll decide, or maybe another extra one down here. So we're kind of going to go light, medium, dark, medium, light, medium, dark, and go around. Might just add a bit more here. The good thing about like starting with this color but then having the white pen later is that you can see where you're putting the highlights, and so then you can kind of come back and do it all. I don't know what to do with his eyes because these are not, let's figure that out last. Looks like he's got a goatee. And then some of these areas, yeah, you can just kind of, I guess, color a section, or you could go edge to edge. I don't think it really matters. I'm overthinking it. I'm just going to color some sections. While I'm coloring this, I'd love to know if you are coloring along or working on something while we do this. Tell us what you're working on in the comments.
Do you know for Australians where to get OLO markers?
That's a good question. Oh, I don't know. Are they in the art shop? Do the art shop have them? I feel like I've seen them in a lot of small shops. I don't believe they're on Amazon at all. I don't know if they ship to Australia. Have I skipped a colour? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to do this as I go. So we've got the slightly darker and then the light to blend it. I mean, some of these little areas, oh, I forgot the paint. You know what? I'm not going to bother. Here's a fun thing I've learned about blotting sheets this week. If you are putting a blotting sheet under your paper, it will stop it bleeding through to the next paper. But your choice of blotting sheet is actually surprisingly important, because if you use a plastic blotting sheet, it stops the marker blending in, and therefore the marker will blend out, which is great for blending, but not great for bleeding, because you will end up with ink traveling everywhere because it can't go any lower, and so it just spreads out on the page. Whereas if you use a blotting sheet, or in this case I'm just treating the next page as a blotting sheet, if you use a blotting sheet that is paper, then the ink will soak in, which will mean that it will disappear off this page faster, making it a little bit harder to blend, but it also means that you're going to be in more control. So generally speaking, I would advise not to use plastic blender sheets, or at least try the difference. I think, yeah, I've got in a video coming up, which I won't be sharing details on for another week or so, but in a video coming up, I've got an example where you'll see what I mean, where the blotter sheet being plastic just absolutely destroyed the page. Ink just went everywhere. And it depends on the markers you're using as well, obviously. I'll put the, just so that everyone's got them, these are the colors I'm using for the OLO. So I'm currently onto 1.2, and I'm just flipping it back to the 0.1 just to blend them in a little bit. It's definitely quicker having to not pick up another marker. Ooh, it's kind of fun. Sorry, this is not intending to be a promotion for OLO. It's just good for this. Oops, I just coloured over the, that wasn't the plan. To be fair, most of my videos end up being some kind of free promotion for either Ohuhu or OLO. That's what happens when you use the same product a lot.
Terry says that there's a lot of wasted ink with cotton core markers. I guess there would be ink that would sort of stay in the core that wouldn't
that you
ever
can never
kind
get
of
out.
come out.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And I guess when you look at the size of the marker as well, it's not necessarily an indication on how much ink you get.
Well, yeah, because it's actually not based on the size of the marker. It's based on the size of the core. So the marker could be huge on the outside and still have a tiny cotton core.
So there's a few people asking where to get the OLO markers, and I had a quick look, and there are different art shops in Australia. I don't think the artshop.com.au has them, but other art shops do, or you can get it straight from OLO's website. I don't know what the shipping's like, so that's some places to look.
Thank you. All right. It's kind of hard to tell the difference at the moment because obviously I'm working in the lightest colours and it's yellow, so it's probably just disappearing. So hopefully it'll get clearer for everyone to see as I move on to the next colours. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually switch this over for this next section because I liked that method of just back and forth, and because I can. So now we have our new back and forth of the 1.2 and the 1.4. So we're moving on to the Y1.4, which is the next darkest one. So you should be able to start to see it a bit now. And then we'll use the 1.2 to kind of just blend it back in. You'll notice too, I'm not like stopping and like working the blend. I'm kind of just leaving it be and trusting, because actually alcohol markers too, they need a minute to dry. And so if you're working on something where it's like hyper-realism or whatever, you'd probably want to sit and wait and see what it does and decide if you need to sort of fix it. But for this, because we're trying to sort of just go with the flow a bit, the flow, get it? Because it's flowing, because it's alcohol markers. I think there's no need to sort of sit and wait and watch because we can come fix it up later anyway. So I can't remember where my highlight was because everything's kind of just looking the same at this point. So we're just going to assume it was there.
Liz has joined the chat.
Liz!
She might be able to tell us where to get the markers.
Yes. Liz, where can we get OLO markers in Australia? Now the part that's like uncolored versus the part that was the light colored, I'm totally getting mixed up. So I'm kind of just redeciding some as I go because I'm like, wait, was that the highlight or was that the highlight? I don't know. Doesn't matter. With the way I've been colouring lately, some people probably don't believe that I used to, well, I still am actually quite a perfectionist. It takes a lot of willpower to let some of these little bits go and just
Latitude Finds says, my shiny cat is done. It's a bit darker than I'd planned, but it's still cute.
Oh, cool. If you do end up trying this, please tag me if you end up posting it anywhere. I always love to see like if this has actually been helpful, you know. So it'd be really cool, like, you know, if you're in our members in the Discord, share it there. If you're in our free Facebook group, share it there. Or if you're just sharing it on social media, just like tag me and I'll have a look, because yeah, I hope this is helpful. With something this small, there's almost like no point in blending some of this because it's kind of like, I don't know, doing it anyway. Okay, so we're moving on. The 1.2 is done. So now we've got our 1.4 and we want to move up to our, what was our next color? The 8.6. So we're kind of moving now into more of less yellow, more brown. Whoops, I missed the joiner. Okay. So this is going to suddenly change it, I think, because this will be quite a bit darker. Yeah, there we go. But it's actually, the contrast is, I think, part of what makes it look shinier. So if you're wanting something to look extra shiny, you want more contrast between your darkest and your lightest colors. So closer to a white and a black. And you also want to make those gradients smaller and even sharper. The sharper your edges are, the shinier it will look. That's why on like this, that's why these highlights on top work, because that actually creates a sharp edge where everything else is a smooth gradient. So if you only had all smooth gradients, it would look a bit more matte, a little bit shiny, but it's adding these sharp changes from the dark to the light. That's actually what makes the shininess really, really work. So that's something to keep in mind. If it doesn't look shiny enough, try and add more extremes on either end. I'm actually going to redo some of these lines here just to bring that in a bit. So it probably looks like I'm being really intentional about where I put these lines. I'm kind of not. I'm kind of just trying to work out what spaces are left, knowing that a lot of it was sort of around the edges. But even then, the edges don't have to be specifically darker or lighter. Sometimes having the light on the edge is actually what will make it look shinier. But that's, we can also just come back later. I guess my point is here, don't worry too much about how specific it's being. I think over time you'll start to just get like a natural feel for where things look right or don't look right. And, you know, if you do want to sort of make it more realistic, maybe spend some time looking into how lighting works and how shadows work and how reflections work, and see if you can start applying that in small steps to your art.
Rhonda's asked, have you ever made a video on using two colours to make a third colour that would work with any markers?
I did in my colouring trend video that we've just released on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. I did in that one try a 2-colour challenge, and I did explore there's some other colours that can work together. It's sort of something that doesn't necessarily apply across brands though, because if a brand uses a slightly different pigment, it changes the mixing quite a lot. So, but it is worth having a look at that. I don't know how much, I think it was featured quite a bit in that video, and I talked through how I choose the colours. So have a look at that, and hopefully that's a good starting point. All right, is he looking a bit metallic? Still got another colour to go. I think we're heading the right direction. Just realised I didn't do this little area at all. All right, I am terrible at getting markers on my fingers. So let's go. Put away our lighter colour, and let's move on to the darkest colour, which is an 8.7Y. Okay, now this one I'm going to have to do, well, I don't know if I have to use it sparingly, because this is where you're really going to see the contrast start to kick in some of these areas, right? Because now you've got the really light and the really dark.
I had to read this a few times to actually understand what it meant, but right now it looks like a minion in the stomach area.
You love minions, don't you, Shane?
I'm going to go with no.
I don't know if his eyes are recessed or not. Kind of feels like that's what I'm accidentally doing here. Because these are not his normal eyes, so it's a little bit hard to kind of judge. Gets really quiet around this part of the stream because I'm like in focus mode. I don't think I've even drunk half that coffee next to me.
You should get like a coffee cup warmer or something.
Should I? We got a coffee cup warmer, and then Shane wouldn't let me plug it in because he didn't want it to kill the stream.
Maybe I'll have to run an extension cord for you.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why I thought that having no lid on either end would be a good idea for someone like me. I'm definitely getting marker on myself. The difference is this hand is clean because usually I get marker on my hand every time I pull the lid off. So actually I think I've probably got less ink on myself overall. So, you know, less marker wastage. I think I've changed the direction of this lighting thing every time I've come back to this hand. Whoops. Whoa. Did we just drip? That was unexpected. Sorry. Maybe because I'm flicking the marker around so much.
For someone who's bought the digital colour cubes, have you got some tips on how they would use the colours on there to make them look realistic to sort of what's on a page? Because we know that the colours sort of show differently on screens. What are your thoughts on how people use them?
Well, so we do have the colour... Sorry, my brain's just trying to work out what I did here. No, opposite. Okay. We do have the art supply matching, and so it is going to be different on a screen versus on a page, but the colour cards, the colour palette cards are mostly made for you to choose colours that work well together, not necessarily to use the image as a reference photo. If you are wanting to use it as a reference photo, you can do that as well, but that's where you might actually take that picture and put it in another app like Procreate or Photoshop or something and eyedrop some of the other colours from the picture. Like, you don't have to only use the colours that we put down the side. If you're trying to use it as a reference image and recreate the picture, you could actually eyedrop some of the other colours in it as well, and that will give you some of those different colours that will help you to really create that image more accurately. So when it comes to like the screen versus print, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that screen is always going to be brighter because it's got a light behind it. If you're wanting it to look more accurate to print as a reference, one tip might even be to turn your brightness down on your screen a little bit. I do that on my iPad if I'm wanting to use that as a reference from every now and then, because even just reducing the brightness on the screen means not too much. Like, I'm talking like 60%, not 100%. That will allow you to kind of get a better idea of what the color looks like without a big bright light behind it. So ultimately, if you're wanting to use that, you're just not going to be able to capture some of those really bright colors on, I've got confused which side I've got. You're not going to be able to capture some of those really bright colors in like pencils and stuff because they don't exist in print. So you're just going to kind of match it the best you can. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or not. But
I guess the other thing is, if you are matching them to art supplies and you are using the digital color cubes, you can actually put different art supplies that you have in there.
Yeah.
And we've actually...
we've done a lot of that scanning. Maybe you can talk through that scanning process a bit, Shane.
Yeah, with a lot of the art supplies that we've got in there, which I think there's about 73 at the moment, they've either been picked from like the colours the manufacturers give, or if you see ones that say level 2 in them, that means that we've actually swatched them out by hand and scanned the colours back in. So if you have a certain set of art supplies, you can bring that colour palette up on the screen and it will tell you which art supply will match that. So that kind of gets around the whole whether your screen's too bright or too dark or has like a sort of a green or a red tint to it. That can help you there, and you don't have to pay for the colour companion to use some of those matching features. If you've got the digital colour cubes, you can get a free account and you can do a lot of different matching and things like that that might also help you.
Now I want my 1.4. All right, so I've kind of done this process. I'm going to go back with the middle colour and just make some of the areas a bit more coloured that I want a bit more coloured. Maybe I don't want the highlight as big as what it is at the moment. So just doing that a little bit. For the most part, like, again, he's not like accurate necessarily, but he definitely looks shiny, and that's what we're going for.
Everyone started saying what time, local time it is for them watching it. So we've got Linda, 3 a.m. in Denmark.
Oh. Well done for coming.
We've got 2:10 a.m. in the UK. We've got 9:10 p.m. in Chile and Atlanta. And we're at 11:15 a.m. here in Australia.
All right, we're up to our white highlights. So we're going to start with those obvious areas that we said that are where those light areas kind of already exist. See how even just adding this now, making the whites whiter, again, it just adds that extra contrast and already just completely changes how much shinier it all looks.
Apparently it's also 8 p.m. in Texas and it's still 40 degrees Celsius at 8 p.m.
Oh, that's rough.
That is savage.
Sucks. My condolences. All right. So that's kind of the core of it. And now I'm just going to keep going with the highlights for a little bit. I got my squinty eyes on to try and look at the value. That's how I try and stop looking at the details. It's really bad for my eyes. So I'm going to, for one thing, I'm going to add around the edges of this one, just a few white areas, because in those joins, that's almost like the light's reflecting off the join. I don't know whether that's something I'll regret later, but we're doing it. And then in some of these areas, we'll just do a few, again, little shiny bits. This is where, because the lines are a bit thinner, I think, and because he's a mechanical thing, you know that he's going to have corners. And so this is kind of like trying to add that shine off the corner. I don't want to do the whole thing. I actually think leaving some, and you could, again, use like a medium, like a yellow or a brown, which I didn't have out, to help with some of these. But I think even just the black and the white creates the effect pretty well. So yeah, just putting some, oh no, that looks like I'm trying to draw teeth. Don't like that. Not on all the edges, but on some of the edges. So his head's got quite a lot of highlights at this point. And I think we can just start moving downward.
Christina in Texas literally has a fan blowing on her for that 40 degrees. I think you probably need more than a fan. You'd need like an ice bath or something.
Yeah, but a fan blowing on her, like not just a fan in the room, is what she's saying. All right, I may have already gone a little bit overboard with the white, but I'm just going to commit to it at this point. We're in. No turning back. How are we feeling? Does it look 3D? Not 3D. Does it look metallic?
Do you find that after looking at it for a while that it gets hard to see the shiny result?
Yeah, I find it definitely helps to kind of like, actually, I have this real benefit here of there being a giant screen in front of me of what you see. And so I often look up at that to go, oh yeah. Whereas when I'm looking at it, yeah, you do start to go, oh, I don't know if it's really working. And then, yeah, you walk away and come back and go, wow. Or in my case, the TV becomes that, of having that second view where I can just look at that and go, oh yeah, that works. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a problem, I think, that everyone faces when you're looking too closely at something for a while.
What white pen are you using?
This is from the Ohuhu Kahuku. Not the Nahuku, the Kahuku. I haven't tried it enough to like know if it's really good. It's what I'm currently hoping is going to be a good go-to pen, but it is part of a big set they sent me. So, but I'm pretty happy with it so far. Like, it seems to be working pretty well at the moment. All right, I think we're done. What do we think? So here's him, and then for comparison, which by the way, I'm sorry, what happened to my book? It's like water damaged or something. Along the edge too. I don't know what happened. Anyway, this is my original. Now this one obviously looks a bit more realistic, but this one was easier and it was fun, and I didn't need a reference photo. Looking at it from the distance, I think I definitely overdid it on the highlights, but you know, that's fine. It was fun. He also doesn't have a background and everything, so I think adding that will help. The other thing you could do is once the white acrylic paint has completely dried, come back over with some of those areas with like a yellow, either a pencil or potentially the alcohol markers again. I don't actually know if you should use alcohol markers on acrylics. I suspect I might have ruined some by doing that, because I would do that. But you can come and kind of just tint some of the areas back, which I probably would do with this because, in fact, what do we got here? The Y01, the 1 point, no, that one's pretty dark. Let's go the 1.2, because some of these areas are pretty bright, so we could come and just like pull them back a bit by just adding the color back on. If you've done too many, you know, I don't know, you don't have to do that. I should probably put this down and stop, because you know, anything like this is a dangerous never-ending thing for me. I'm gonna put it down, but I hope this was helpful. When we come back with members in, what are we doing, an hour? Yeah, an hour and 10 an hour and 10
An hour and 10 minutes.
An hour and 10 minutes.
Sure.
We'll be back here with the members. If you want to join the membership, it's just we can pop a link below, or you just click join next to my channel. Even if you're not in the membership, please actually have a look and see if you're subscribed, because there's a lot of people that watch our videos that are not subscribed. I would really like to get our subscriber number up a little bit. It's been hovering in the 400s for quite a while. But yeah, if you found this helpful, and if you want to do more stuff like this in live streams, let me know. I am working on some more coloring trends for potentially a follow-up video to that last one. So we might do some of them in live streams and see how we go. Other than that, yeah, come back and join us if you want to keep going. The YouTube members, so memberships, anyone silver and above, will be invited back for part 2 of the extended live stream to finish this page in an hour and a half. And for everyone else, thank you so much for joining. If you do want to know more about like the color companion, please head over to my website or ask in the comments, and we'll hang around and answer some questions. The live comments will turn off, but then you've got the video comments, so please feel free to use them. Any final thoughts, Shane?
So if you'd like to become a member,
yes,
go to Sarah's YouTube channel page, and
yes,
there's a join button on there.
So everyone now after this video should go to the page and then see if your subscribe button is on or off, and then if you want to join, you can join while you're there.
Sounds good.
We never do call to actions in our main videos, and we don't really take sponsorships in our main videos or anything like that, so this is me just saying please. Yeah, on that note, we do have a video coming out in a few weeks in the main channel. We have another live stream happening in 2 weeks as well, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night or 3 AM. Please go to sleep if that's you.